Alright, hey, Paper Cut here doing another replay review. We got Premi15, hope I'm saying that right, who asked for me to look at his game. He is a silver player. We love our silver players because they're grinding, they're getting better. And he wants me to look at this game to give him advice. And as always on these replay reviews, we're going to look at the game and try to figure out what are like the 2 to 3 things to pull out of a game to do better. I mean, there's always dozens of things we mess up on, no matter your skill level every game. But we're going to try to pull out the 2 to 3 big things to help Premi 15 get better quickly. So with that, he's playing the Ayyubids against the Byzantines. Now, I will admit, I do not have as strong of an understanding of the new civs as I do the old civs. So I'm sorry if I say something that might not be perfectly correct for your civ. Ayyubids I probably know the least about. So I'm going to be focusing a lot more on just like decision-making response than necessarily strategy of the civ. I assume you've watched a build order. I assume you're doing something that is efficient to get you to feudal, and then I hope you have a plan. So what I am going to be interested to see, can I identify your plan or what you're trying to do in-game? Let's get started. So this map, though, does have the water in the center. I often don't take the water just because, you know, it's just a few shoreline fish. So it doesn't feel like good enough to warrant a complete change. So I'm watching your scouting pattern. What I loved is that you came out, grabbed the initial sheep, dropped them off, and then head back. My suggestion is that you need to try to get all the scouting done in one go before the game heats up and you really need to see what your opponent's doing. So for example, after you did the initial grab of the sheep, I actually would have come all the way over, and your goal is to try to capture all of this in one go. Check what your opponent's doing, circle back around, drop off the sheep. And this allows you, one, to know exactly where everything is on the map, so you can make good decisions as the game goes on. But two, it means you're not repeating, running around, trying to find stuff. And then after that, you send your scout back and just be scouting your opponent to know what to do in response. So you have a lot of blackout area that you don't know what's going on in here. Your opponent goes for early stones. So Byzantines, here's what we know with the Byzantines. Real popular right now is the 3 cistern build. Cisterns give them bonuses to their units. Byzantines have actually been struggling early on because people are still trying to figure out the Byzantines. Some people, there have been a few aggressive playstyles. I've seen the pros bust out, but what I've played on the ladder and see on the ladder is a lot of people kind of play a defensive style. So the key with the Byzantines to me is getting at them quickly. They are a civ that I have lost to them when I've let them get their olive oil up, get their mercenaries pumping, and that's really hard to catch up to them. But if you can attack them and fight them early before they get nice and comfortable in their eco, you have a good chance of beating them. It'll be interesting to see which age you decide to go. So if I have no problems with your opening here, it looks like you do have a solid build order that you're following. Pretty solid uptime. Economic growth. Okay. So you're planning on doing this build is the best. This upgrade's the best if you have a lot of mills, if you have a lot of berry bushes. So we'll see if that... I don't know how many berry bushes are on this map per se. I don't know if there's a lot compared to others. But the 3 villagers from the jump is nice. I have seen really popular be the... Oh, which one is it? Oh, it's the trade wing bazaar. Just because you can get some pretty nice trades out of that. That was a little RNG. Okay, you're immediately dropping in barracks. Okay, so this tells me that you want to go into immediate aggression. I see you're making spearmen. I would upgrade the spearmen first before even making them. So the question at this point is, what's your goal? For the Byzantines, you want to cut off their stone for more cisterns, but also kind of cut them off from resources in general. You look at this map. Once they are done with their initial resources, his rest of his resources are pretty far out. His gold is pretty far front, but he has his back gold. He has these berries. But after that, you know, the deer's up here, and there's deer over here. All things you can cut off pretty easily if you're aggressive. Right now, you're just making spearmen. I want to know why you're making spearmen. Do you view that as like the best unit you can produce? To me, it just feels like you're kind of making spearmen just cuz, not in response to anything. Double product suggests that you want to go heavy. Okay, so first, this outpost, why? What is this outpost doing for you? The reason I say this is because you've wasted 100 wood along with the work time of the workers to put that tower up. This tower isn't really protecting anything. Your TC covers this wood line, protects these berries, doesn't protect the gold, but this outpost doesn't do much, and even then, putting it right here doesn't even provide you vision. Putting the outpost here, for example, if you go on this deer, makes sense. Your villagers are far away from protection. Your villagers could then hop in that tower to protect themselves, and also that tower provides vision. This tower doesn't provide you anything, and thus feels like a waste of wood that could be used in something else. I'm also noticing right now that you aren't producing villagers. You need to always make sure you're producing villagers. If you fall behind on villagers, that if you miss a villager, that's the resources that villager could have collected forever gone. So it's really important you're always collecting villagers. Next, I'm noticing all this resource buildup. This tells me that you don't really have a plan that you're executing fully. What I mean by this is, if your goal is to do feudal pressure, you should be using all your resources and getting upgrades. I should see you be dropping a blacksmith and getting your military upgrades. I should see you dropping more production and making more units. I should see you be getting your upgrade, your eco upgrades, and you're pushing in. By the way, most important eco upgrade first is wheelbarrow, always. It affects all your villagers. Then you get the eco upgrades based on what you're doing a lot of. So since you are focusing on berries, horticulture is great. If you're going to focus on wood and make a lot of buildings, get production done, double Rodox is great. What I'm saying is, it feels like right now you're kind of making units just to make units. But I don't see you dropping more production. I don't see you making your max amount. Because right now with these resources, you can make a lot more units. But you're not. You're kind of wasted potential here. Imagine if these resources were put into units right now. You could have down another production building. You could have out archers. You could have down a stable and be making cavalry. That's what I mean. And see, going back to the scouting thing earlier, here you are scouting this all over again, when in reality, you should just be sticking around his base. You should right now be rotating around his base and figuring out what is he doing. Because what you haven't done since you walked by, you don't actually know what he's doing. Is he making units? Is he rushing castle? You actually have no idea what he's doing right now. And since you haven't sent your military forward, you have no idea. You're kind of just playing in the dark here. You're making another tower. See, you're making towers right now as if you're playing against a super aggressive Civ. These towers are like if you're playing against French, or playing against Delhi, and you're trying to boom. But you're not trying to boom. You're going on stone now, so we'll see. But you're kind of making these towers just make towers because you kind of feel unsafe. You only make you feel more safe if you were at the opponent. If you had your military here pushing them off gold, and like actively scouting around. If you were scouting around and saw you had no units, you don't need to buy these outposts. These outposts could have been more production. Second, if you're rushing castle right now, you should have more on gold and more on food. You could be at castle already with these resource splits right now. But yeah, there doesn't seem to be much of a plan in sight. And you're sending one to stone. I assume the stone is to upgrade the towers, which I wouldn't even upgrade these towers yet. Spring gold upgrades are better later on. You're dropping another barracks. Okay, so your opponent comes in with horsemen, and you're lucky in that sense. You're lucky that you built your spearmen, but you haven't upgraded them yet. Every age, you make sure you upgrade all your units, because your spearmen are going to struggle a little bit against feudal horsemen. Okay, so your opponent killed about 3 or 4 villagers, which should not have happened. The second your opponent got to you, you should have immediately scrolled over. Oh, you are going castle. Okay. That's fine. I'm interested to see what your goal is once you hit castle. Because you're going castle, but you have units on stone. I can see going castle to a Ghulam rush. That's really good. In that case, you should have 4 barracks down, and then heavy on food and gold, and you are massing Ghulams the second you age up. But yeah, I could totally see what you're trying to do. But here's the thing. 1, if you're going to have spearmen out, which is great, put your spearmen right on the resource that is not safe, which is this one. 2, whenever you are attacked, my suggestion is you immediately box over all the villagers near and just press G. G is the seek shelter, so your villagers will automatically run to safety, and you would have saved those villagers. It looked like you're kind of doing it yourself, which actually is what caused you to lose these villagers, because they got stuck and died, instead of just garrisoning immediately. You also can click on your town center and press R, which would immediately alerted all villagers in this area to just hide, and you would have saved those villagers. But look what happened. Because of that raid, and because of how you have your villagers set up, you currently have no food to make, and also make sure once the raid is done, click on your town center and press C. C will tell all the villagers to go back to the task they were doing, which is why using the hotkeys is really powerful. If you had hotkeyed and click G, then when it's done, press C on the town center. Boom, your workers are back and working. It's much more efficient. You're getting resources back in that way. Instead, you have no food right now, which means you can't do anything. And once again, I'm getting this feeling of, what are we trying to accomplish here? You're gathering some stone. You've hit castle. You have 2 production buildings. What are you trying to do to win the game? I'd also point out your scout here. You could have known if your opponent... Here's the thing. If you had been scouting earlier and saw him drop the stables, you actually would have known that the horsemen were coming. And your spearmen could have been ready to kill those horsemen. Let's actually look at what your opponent's doing right now. Your opponent's getting on a second town center. Your opponent went an Imperial Hippodrome. And they're gathering gold right now. What you should notice is you're pretty far ahead. He's trying to rush castle right now because you hit castle. But he's also putting on a town center. But if you saw this Imperial Hippodrome, you could have easily stopped those horsemen. Second, if you had been walking around with your scout, you would have seen he had no units to stop you. You could have pushed these villagers off with your spearmen and stopped this town center from coming up. I bring this up because you actually had a chance to really harm your opponent if you had been aggressive early. But since you didn't know what your opponent was doing, you played passive, which has allowed them to punish you by killing some of your villagers. But if you had 4 barracks down just pumping ghulams, you could kill them right now. Easy. But instead you're walling up. You're playing passive. Super passive. And because you don't have information. Go get information. Yeah. You had a pretty good castle timing. You could have even faster, but this is a good castle timing. Good. Sultan's Mamluks, great. I love that. Your spearmen are now hard, but they could be harder. They could be they could be veteran. Now he reached castle, and he reached castle for free. Look at this. You have all these units here. Why are they not attacking your opponent? Why are these units sitting here? You still need wheelbarrow. If your units are ever gonna leave, if your villagers are ever gonna leave your base, you need wheelbarrow. So you put in this. Okay, you did it for a keep here. Why? You still have... I'm all for securing resources. And now you're just massing units. Getting the relics, that's good. Get the relics. Okay. I have a pretty good idea of what I'm going to tell you as the overall goal here. But I'm gonna kind of fast watch this just to see if there's anything else to consider. Okay. Also, you don't know your opponent went 2 TC, so now he's just kind of... What? You attacked and then walked away. Why? What are you scared of? His 4 men-at-arms? You currently have 41 military. He has 33. I think please upgrade your spearmen. Rally your production to where your units are right now to keep your military together. You're going for a raid. Maybe. Okay, you're gonna go over a raid. Good raid. Now you're out. You have so many resources. What are you gonna do with these resources? You're probably gonna go imp. Okay, let's see this micro here. This is amazing. Ripping through them right now. Uh-oh. If this ever happens, if your opponent runs out of mango and you don't have anything to take him out, one is the Ayyubids, you could just back up and build a springhold real fast. Totally acceptable. Second, you could just box over these Ghulams and just rush this Magnol and then bring it back. honestly. You could do that too. Here's another look at this. You are... One, you have a bunch of units that you need to spend. Okay, you're getting the spearman, good. So if you ever have a raid coming up with this, one, have like 3 villagers repair the wall to buy time, and then just rally the spearmen to the point that they're coming through, which is like what you're doing. 2, when you're fighting like this and you're like winning, rally your units to the front. Get your units up here. Click over your production and rally up to here and put them all here. 3rd, as your economy grows, look at all these resources you're spending. You can't actually spend it all because you don't have enough production. But all this food and gold could be units. You could have 60 ghulams right now on the field running through his base. You could imagine if you had 8 barracks down and you're spamming ghulams. You'd be all over the map. He couldn't stop you. So it's not using your resources to their potential. You responded too much to this raid. These spearmen could stop this raid. Instead, you let him buy himself time. Just rebuild the wall. You're in such a good spot. You should win this game. You just gotta spend your resources. What, are you saving them for next game? Look at this. You have 1 archery range that you're building 4 archers from and upgrading your archers in. You need more production. This is an issue I've had many times as I've improved my gameplay, is not having enough production to win the game. So I can't produce units fast enough. My opponent, who will drop 20 production buildings, will just be pumping units way faster than me, which leads to me losing because his army, even if I win engagements, his army will eventually overwhelm mine. Awesome. Repair that with the villagers. You're trading now. So you only need to trade once you're out of gold. You actually have great map position. You have this gold, you can get this gold. You just got this gold, which you inherently kind of protect this gold. So building traders isn't really necessary. You can, but it's not really necessary. And you're not getting a great trade either. You're getting 36 gold pop. It would actually just been better if you dropped 2 or 3 town centers. You have the resources, just drop more town centers. And produce more villagers. Because right now these traders can only get you gold. Uh-oh. Okay, so your raiders came in. So when I saw your raiders come in, my mind, I'm like, oh, he's fine. But then your raiders, I think you clicked your raiders on killing 1 unit in particular. Your raiders should have came in and killed Mangonel, Springald, and then once that happens, you run your villagers up and kill the siege with that. The rams. Okay, and then you quit. Alright, so here's what happened. You ready? Here's what I think you need to do as the things that will help you get better right now. 1, be aggressive. You played extremely passively, which is a really common thing in the bronze, silver, gold, even plat ranks, is that we often over-assume our opponent's ability, which can causes us to play too passive, which actually allows our opponent to beat us. At no point were you really pressuring your opponent. He got to build a second TC. He got to build his farming. He got to build his production. He got to do everything he wanted, which eventually led him to creating a stronger army than yours. So try pressuring. How do you know what to pressure? Use your scout. So let me rephrase that. Number 1, use your scout. Keep scouting around your opponent's base to know what is he dropping and respond to that. He drops the Imperial Hippodrome. Oh, that's horsemen. Build spearmen. Oh, he drops an archery range. I should get out horsemen, or camel riders. Point being is that you need to use your scout to know what your opponent's doing and respond to that. But if you had just built spearmen archers and pushed him, you would have pushed him off his gold and he would have struggled. Then you could have rotated to his back gold and then he couldn't do anything. But you gave him time to do what he wanted. If you are trying to do that castle rush, do the castle rush, but do it efficiently. You should kind of do the villager splits that you did, but you need to focus more on food and gold. Get to castle. And if you're trying to do a quick castle, I suggest you do a Gulam rush. Just try to get down as many barracks as possible and just pump Gulams. And throw them at your opponent's base. But 3, spend your resources. You kept on building resources and not spending them, which doesn't help you at all. you need kind of this cycle. I suggest you have this cycle. I call it the macro cycle, where have a post-it note on your computer. Say it out loud repeatedly. But like every minute, you need to ask yourself, am I making villagers? Check. Am I making military? Max out my military buildings. Can I build more military buildings? Put those down. How's my resources looking? And check your resources. What's your goal? Is your goal to good at castle, make gulams? Do I have enough food and gold? Is your goal to fight in feudal? Do I have a good split of resources? And if you've one resource way more than the others, rally your villagers to the resource that you need. 4, after you check your resources, ask yourself, what's my goal right now? Am I doing it? What can I be doing differently? And keep repeating myself. Villagers, military, resources, move things as I need to, drop more production, spend my resources, and go. But you had a ample opportunity to win that game if you were just aggressive and went for it. And so my suggestion is, if you really want to get better at the game, be overly aggressive. Build units and go. You will die, you will lose, but you'll also learn, oh, if I push my opponent off gold, he doesn't really know what to do at this point. If I rotate around and kick him off his food resources, he has nowhere to go and he runs out of units. Like, be aggressive and learn how to play that way, because it will help you be a better player overall. And really establish that goal of what am I trying to do and try to execute it efficiently every single time and think about why it didn't work. In this case for you, scouting, spending your resources, being aggressive, attacking your opponent, and scouting them at all times to know what they're doing. Okay, with that, I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions, let me know. If you're interested in coaching, I do paid coaching. Feel free to message me. We could set up something. And feel free to check out some of my other videos on my YouTube. I try to do educational content, and hopefully those videos could help you. With that, good luck on your games.